Okay, so today our lesson is on the power of holding your boundaries in business. And this is one that I am still learning. And I actually had a conversation with my coach around this morning. So I'm just going to show you some examples of when I didn't hold my boundaries in business, what kind of clients I actually decline now, and why this is so important to building long-term success in business. So, what I want to say to start with is I have been in such aligned business partnerships and taking on such aligned clients lately that when I look at what I was doing a couple years ago, I feel like my business has shifted 180 degrees. It's been so nice to really enjoy working with clients again and really be excited about their mission, their program, their service, and just everything about working with them. So if you are one of my current clients or you've been a client recently and you're watching just thank you so much for being respectful, being responsible, and for being in partnership with me. So, without further ado, I'll go ahead and start this. All right, so turning clients away may seem counterintuitive, but it's actually a really powerful strategy. Now, when I first started in business, one of my main objectives actually was to get more clients into my business. As someone who does lead generation and knows how to do this, I just wanted anyone and everyone. And because I knew the tools, it was really easy to get people on discovery calls. And because I am such a people pleaser, it is really easy on discovery calls to know what to say to get that person to sign with you. And what I was doing a lot of is sacrificing my boundaries to make this happen. And now I really prioritize setting really clear boundaries to ensure a mutually beneficial relationship on both ends. So I'll give you a couple examples of things that I would do previously that did not work at all. So, like, one of them was going and being like, yeah, I can attend calls at 5 a.m. regularly. And now, if you have ever been a client of mine, you know that I'm kind of the do whatever it takes person. And if there's a one off time where I need to hop on a 5 a.m. call or stay up late for a presentation, like, I am all in. But when I first started, I thought that like I would do whatever it took for the client. Or if there was a service that I didn't really want to offer, but that's the only way the client would work with me, all of a sudden I'd start offering that service. And so, as you can see, the boundaries got really muddy pretty quickly. So, I'm going to take you through each one of them and who I say no to now and why. All right, so if I see for any reason that there is an inability to help this person, I'll go ahead and say no. And that these are even for people who think that I can help them even after giving a presentation. And what I look for in this isn't that I wouldn't be able to help someone, but can they actually get an ROI off of their investment with me? So I guess a couple years ago, I had taken on someone and they needed leads. They were doing a service. I'll just keep it very general. They were doing a service and I knew that I could get them leads. What I didn't know in the beginning is that they were unwilling to change their website or their funnel. So it didn't matter if I got them 300 leads. It didn't matter that they were willing to pay for these leads. When I knew they weren't willing to change their funnel, I knew that none of them would convert. And so I ended up ending that contract pretty quickly after that conversation came about, which is really exciting to kind of know that, like, okay, now I need to have these conversations from the get-go. Because when I know that I can't get someone a return on investment, I don't think it's worth either of our time, because in the end, then I feel like I failed. And then in the end, they feel like, why did I pay for all of this when it's just not going to work out for me? So when I first meet with someone, I like to know their program service, their pricing, what that looks like. And so I make a really calculated decision on, is this going to give someone an ROI either now or in the future? And so an example of that is typically I work with high ticket programs. And so I know if I'm charging them $2,000 a month, but they're selling something for $3,000, one sale would get them there. But another example of this is someone who is selling low ticket, but I know that they can hold so much volume, and I know that their industry is growing and they already have a proven framework or community that is already going through this evolution. And so in that case, I would say yes. But what I say no is for a lot of people who are kind of just getting started in low ticket. Product based, typically I don't work with because it is harder to get an ROI off of. But if the person is really willing to see it out long term and they have the funds, like that's absolutely acceptable. But I just want them to kind of know what to expect and to be able to feel satisfied with this service at the end of the contract together. I'm not providing miracles here. I'm not going to take a business that is absolutely in the ground and turn it around in 30 to 90 days. And I'm not able to take someone who's, selling a $20 product and get them $10,000 if they've never marketed it before. Now, like I said, if this was something that was doing well or something that I stood behind and knew was really popular and they'd get an ROI off of it in the future, I would consider it. But some people do come to me and truly, I don't see my services being able to get them any sort of ROI, either now or like 6 months to a year from now. Okay, second reason, timing. So this is probably the most frequent reason why I turn people away now and why I created Lead Generation Accelerator, because a lot of people who want done for you services actually aren't in the place where they're ready for it. So I consider someone ready for done for you services when they're already getting clients, they have some conversations going, their social media is set up, they're posting, they have a lead magnet, maybe they have a variety of offers, they're doing well in business, they're not struggling, but they just don't have the time to do lead generation anymore, or it's not their favorite task, or they just want to enhance it and make it smoother. So now what I do is I actually refer people to my Lead Generation Accelerator course, which walks them through how to get all these things set up before they come and outsource to me. And I didn't used to do that because I didn't have that course. And so what I would do is take on people, I guess, earlier on in the journey, and then I would have to either wait for them to create these things, which then it took them longer to get a result, or these things weren't habits, so it was harder to get that result. So for example, I took on someone who really had no conversations going on. She did post, but I think that there was just a lack of clarity in like her community and her target market, and so it was really hard to get results, and we ended up parting ways because that foundation piece wasn't clear. But the clients who come to me with like a really strong foundation, already having conversations, already really clear on their offer, already selling, it's pretty smooth and we're able to start getting results pretty quickly. And again, if someone comes into this aware that they still have some work to do, I'd probably refer them to Lead Generation Accelerator. But if they were like, oh yeah, I have this in the works and I could get it to you before we start services and I'm able to kind of verify it, I would consider on a case-to-case basis. But I think this just makes my job so much easier because I could go into their account at a point where, again, I'm not the savior. I'm really just enhancing their lead generation, making some tweaks to it, making sure it continues and maybe bettering it somewhat, but I'm not the one building their business. And this is where I felt really, really drained in lead generation before, is it felt like all the weight was on my shoulders. And, I was responsible for getting all of this together until I realized that's not my ideal client. All right. Reason 3, pricing misalignment. So in the past, I was pretty flexible about different structures of pricing, but this time coming into my lead generation, I feel pretty confident that I'm only going to accept a retainer-based pricing. And of course, like if someone was a client previously, I would look at this in more of a gray area because I trust that they're going to pay and I trust who they are and I know their business. But when someone like initially comes in, I feel like some people try and offer commission, some people try and offer like price sharing, this or that. And I don't think any of those are wrong. It's just not my type of style because energetically, I know that I am putting in so much work. I'm building out systems, and I'm invested into this. And so energetically, it feels really not good to know that I could get no money from that project if I don't convert, which typically, like, I will convert for companies that I have already pre-qualified, but the energetics around it just feel really strange to me. Like, my coach gave me an example and she was like, oh, if you were building a house, would it be like you build the house and then if they don't like it or, you know, they don't want to buy it, then you don't charge them anything, versus being able to be like, if you're really confident in your product, program, or service, like, you would be willing to invest the money up front. And I do in my program, in my done for you program, like, I will offer, if I'm very confident with someone, like a results-based guarantee, and I would keep working with them until they got their result. If for some reason I wasn't able to get it to them in the first few months. But I really want people to have that confidence in their program or service and feel that we're the right fit. And I think that the people who don't have the price objection are the people who are really ready for this service, because they know that being able to get results like this, you do have to pay for. And I also, on the other hand, know that I deserve to be paid well as someone who is, you know, already invested into education around this, invested into different softwares, invest in coaching, and really have grown with this craft. And I'm bringing my best to each and every client. So I'll turn people away if they want to negotiate prices with me. And again, on a case by case basis, like, if a client was just like, oh, I just need help for this week, and they're a past client and I know their business, maybe that would be something I would consider. But on the all in all, like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to have a price negotiation. I don't want to get into some weird contract of like, I'll pay you when I get results, or I'll I'll pay you on my timeline or whatnot. Like, no, I'm the business owner. I'm the one who needs to take that hard stance of, you know, if you want a house built, you need to pay for it. If you want your business built with these softwares and someone monitoring engagement for you, like, payment upfront is required. So yeah, and I do find that the people who are just really excited to invest in their business, they're the best clients. And most of the people that I've taken that get really good results, usually they're not the ones who question pricing. So quite interesting there. And then the other thing I want to mention here before I change the slide is I don't use pushy sales tactics. And this is why. Because the people who are ready to invest self-lead themselves there. Oh, next out of this. The people who are ready to invest self-lead themselves there because they know and they believe in their product or service so much that they know that investing in it will only give them an ROI, where those who are more hesitant, if I convince them and use pushy sales tactics to get them over the edge, I don't want them to end up regretting it later. I don't want them to be like, well, you said this or you told me this. Like, no, like, they need to get to that decision themselves. And I feel really aligned with that. And most people who do end up working with me, they are able to get themselves, well, I guess all people who work with me, they're able to get themselves to that point. And it feels really good. It feels really good because once they're in, they've convinced themselves they're 100% in. I don't have to have that, like, where they come to me and they're like, oh, I'm really scared that I did this, or like, I regret doing this or whatnot. Like, of course I give them good customer service, and of course I'm really there for them when they initially sign up, but I don't want it to be this like fear tactic either. All right, niche expertise. So before I wanted to kind of try out like all these different industries, and there are quite a few industries that I can work with in terms of lead generation, especially if someone's willing to give me some training beforehand, give me exposure to what they're selling, even going into their program or service and trying it out myself. I'm able to sell it so much better. Again, the people I've gotten the best results for, I've actually gone through their program or service. I know just so much about it that I'm able to really speak to it and see the people who I would be attracting into it. But I did have people reaching out to me before in industries that I really didn't know too well. I wasn't completely foreign to them, but I didn't know them too well. And I recognized it was such a hard transition there. It was definitely harder for me to learn about it. It took longer to get results. And so now I'm pretty much sticking to industries that I do know. I help people who do business coaching, life coaching, spiritual coaching, those in like alternative health industries, because I use alternative health methods myself and I've researched and learned and watched so much about them. I've also done a lot of personal development work, so I like working with people in that industry. I've invested in business coaching, I've invested in manifestation coaching, spiritual coaching, all of that. And so those are industries that I already know the inside lingo to. I already know who would want them. I already have benefited from the services. So I'm much more likely to recognize those who would versus if I was helping someone in, let's see, uh, I can't even think of something right now. Construction. I think that's an example I gave someone. Like, I don't know the lingo. I don't know who would need that. That's not my expertise. But yeah, people who are in an industry that I've worked at, like I've worked in finance, so that feels good. Like I use a lot of software and tech, so that feels good. But I'm not, a college professor or anything like that. So I probably wouldn't be a good recruiter for professors or whatnot. So you really have to think like, what background do I have? And if there is a learning curve, like again, just being straight up and honest about this and being like, hey, I don't know everything about this, but like, what if you guys could give me more education? Or what if I could try out your product or service for a while and really feel into if this is good for me? And this just ensures that the client receives the best kind of support in that lead generation. Okay, next, an energetic fit. So it's essential to consider you're going to be working really close with this person. And for me, I typically sign 3-month contracts. And so you want to make sure this is a person that you want to see regularly, you want to message you. You're going to be so close with them that you want to make sure that this is 100% aligned. And what I mean by that is not just them personally, because most of the time I get along with a lot of people. There was one client I declined because I didn't feel necessarily safe around him. He was making some weird comments to me on a meeting. And so I was like, look, I don't think I can make this work. But that was only one in so many clients that I've talked to. But another thing is if you can't get behind their product or service, it's probably not going to be aligned for you to find leads for them because you don't believe in it personally. I don't even really have an example of this, but like if you didn't believe in, trying to think, like if you didn't believe in technology, but you're selling something to do with technology, that would just feel super unaligned. And so when I see people just honestly with any sort of like body shaming for women or anything like that, like I don't stand behind. So I don't go there. And I think that it's not worth taking the money and sacrificing your own beliefs. And I have to say, like every single client that I've worked with, I mean, every single client, not even the ones who weren't super, like that didn't work out eventually, like I really aligned with all their missions, their values, being able to see the amazing services, products they created is just phenomenal. And so that's really what drives me and gets me to work every day, is knowing that they have a great mission behind them. The other thing that I'll say here is also consider call times and other expectations that these clients may have. So typically what I do is I'll do lead generation, and then I'll do strategy calls and data analytics and whatnot. Sometimes people have something very specific that they're already doing in their business, and they'll ask me if I could take it on. And most of the time it's like no big deal. It's like, can you put the leads in a Google sheet with me? And I'm like, oh, I already do that. Like, I'll just share it with you. Or it's like, instead of there, can you put it in ClickUp? And that's no big deal for me. But if it was something super outland of like, well, can you create every single post for me and then design it and then, copyright all these things? Like, at this point, my business doesn't do that. So it's just not something that I would say yes to. Maybe in the future, I'll have partnerships where people do that. But yeah, and then call times. This is a big one too. So working online, you are working potentially internationally. And this is a big one at first. I'm on the West Coast of the United States, so I am super behind in time zones. And I decided to join a team one time where they had calls just super early. For me, typically I start my day at around 7 a.m., but their calls were consistently at 5, 6 a.m. And because it was a team call, it wasn't something that could necessarily change. And at the time, I was more willing to do that, where now that's something I would probably decline because I like having my 8 hours of sleep and that's just my schedule. So just really consider the longevity of it. That really at one point kind of got me down because I wasn't sleeping well, and just something I should have considered before doing it is this sustainable long term? And if not, like maybe it's not the right position for me to take. And that one wasn't that extreme of an example. I was able to make it work, but if someone constantly wanted their call times at like 2 a.m. or something, like that wouldn't be at all sustainable. Or if they really like would just ghost on every call, again, not someone I would want to work with. But yeah, that's kind of the last reason there. And in conclusion, I just want to say it can be so hard to turn clients away, especially as a new entrepreneur, as a freelancer, building your first book of business. Every single opportunity you have to get money, you really hold on to, but also think about like when you're growing this business sustainably, what do you want your day to day to look like? What do you want your income to look like? What do you want, the missions that you serve to look like? And if something isn't in alignment with those, then ultimately it's probably in your best interest to decline it, because then that leaves space and room for the right clients to come in. And that saves you from a lot of burnout, arguments in the future, energetic misalignments, and yeah, just really sets you up for success. So love to hear what you guys think of this. If you are going to start turning away more clients, if you've already turned away clients and this was just a reassurance to you that you're on the right track. If you're feeling in that desperation and don't even know how to turn away people who are interested in your programs or services, let me know. And also subscribe to this channel. I love talking business as well as helping those kind of getting started in the industry, as well as those scaling in the industry. Talk about AI, lead generation, what I would have done differently in my business, how I am building and scaling now, and just everything around that. And if you found this video valuable, please like it. The likes and the comments mean so much to me, because then it makes me feel like you guys are watching and taking away something from this. So I always appreciate that, as well as sharing with any friends or family that you feel like could benefit from this as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.